guys, what's up? This is the Highlight Vault. Welcome to Conference Realignment. And before we get into this, note, these realignments are all in my opinion. If you think something different should happen, like if you think a different team should leave that conference or go somewhere else, or if you don't agree with one of the teams that we think should be added or leave to a certain conference, let us know down in the comments. So, diving straight into this, we're going to start off with the Atlantic 10. The Atlantic 10 is going to be waiving VCU, and not only VCU, they're also going to be waiving Fordham, and they're not going to be adding anyone. So let's talk about this. VCU, this team is perfect right now for the Atlantic 10, but if they're going to keep progressing at the same pace that they have these past couple of years, they're going to be way too dominant, I feel, for the Atlantic 10. And I think they would be better off in a more stronger conference, and they would still be able to compete in that conference. And now talking about Fordham, it's complete opposite. This team, as long as I can remember, has not succeeded enough, especially in these past years in the Atlantic 10. I know for sure that they haven't won a single game at George Washington. So VCU's the total opposite of Fordham. You know, you have the good side of VCU where they're too good for the conference, and then there's Fordham where they're not good enough to stay in. And I feel the Atlantic 10 is very underrated. You know, it has a lot of power. You get a lot of those smaller teams that get ranked, Rhode Island, Dayton, VCU. You know, at times they will be ranked in your top 25. You'll see that, come up here and there every year. And so I think VCU is too strong for this program. It seems like they're always dominating it. And maybe if they're not winning, they're still going into postseason play, NIT, CIT, CBI. They'll still get into that stuff just because of how dominant of a core they have. And then for Fordham, it's just the complete opposite. So next, we're going to talk about the Northeast Conference. Northeast Conference is not going to get rid of anyone. They're going to be adding Fordham. And then obviously Merrimack College. I just put that in there because they're going to be a new team coming in from D2. But we're going to be mainly talking about Fordham. Fordham, geographically, it makes sense. They're in the Northeast. And skill level-wise, I think they fit in perfectly with the NEC. So we're just going to move right along from that to the American Conference. American Conference is already a very strong conference. They built it up very well. They just made the conference not too long ago, back in 2013. It's already, one of your stronger. It's probably the best mid-major conference outside of Power 6. So not going to be getting rid of anyone. But they're going to be adding Rutgers and VCU. I want to first talk about VCU. VCU is a team I've thought for a while they would fit perfectly. If you add them to the American, it's like a missing puzzle piece. It just fits right in. And I feel like that's what VCU would be. They have a very well-dominant program, good recruiting, good coaching staff. And I think they're suitable for the American. And now you see Rutgers in there. So let's move into the Big Ten. We're going to talk about that because Rutgers is a huge move. Big Ten going to be waiving Rutgers. And this might stir up some emotions in the comments. Adding West Virginia. Big Ten is probably one of the biggest conference realignments we have. So let's start with Rutgers. Why? Rutgers, I know in the past has had decent programs. They've also had pretty good programs. Back in the Big East days, Rutgers wasn't too bad. But that obviously was back when Big East had football, so they made more sense there. And they came in to the Big Ten. And I gotta be honest, Rutgers was not ready for this. I am sorry to all you Rutgers fans, but your teams are not good enough to compete in the Big Ten. I'm sorry, Rutgers was not ready. They aren't built. they might be progressing, but I really don't think it's going to last. I got to be honest. I don't think they're going to become, one of those lower teams, and then, next year Rutgers is, at the top, fighting for the Big Ten tournament championship in basketball or football, which even if they are, growing as a program, I really don't think they would ever get far. That's just my opinion. West Virginia. This one's huge because West Virginia, coming from the Big 12, which is already a great conference, is going to be just moving to another power conference. The reason why I do this is geographical sense. West Virginia fits perfectly. I know they used to be in the Big East, so you could debate either Big East or Big Ten. The Big East just added UConn, or is gonna add UConn. I don't think UConn's gonna be playing in the 2019-2020 season for basketball. But West Virginia, I think either Big East or Big Ten, but not the Big 12. Geographical sense doesn't fit, so that's just why I put them in the Big Ten just for now. I didn't really have I couldn't find too many reasons to put them into the Big East yet, to move them back in there. I just thought Big Ten would make a lot more sense, but you could also put them in the Big East. If you would argue that, I think I could agree with you on that one. Moving on, back to a mid-major, the Western Athletic Conference. This is going to be a huge move. They're going to be waiving Chicago State along with Missouri, Kansas City, or UMKC. First, before we even talk about the team that the WAC should add, waiving Chicago State and UMKC. Chicago State, UMKC, these are the Midwestern teams, and I like to think of conferences being in a geographical sense. Chicago and Kansas City in the keyword Western Athletic Conference. Doesn't make sense, but if we take out the geography side of this, these teams, I don't know where to start on how bad your program is. Chicago State is probably one of the biggest embarrassments to college basketball. I'm sorry if there's any Chicago State fans in here, which I doubt there ever will be, but I'm sorry, I have to cut to the chase. Your team is awful. You don't fit in the Western Athletic Conference. Western Athletic Conference, probably one of the most underrated conferences in college basketball in the West, since there is a lot of them. And so, UMKC, I don't find anything. They're not good, but I'm not going to rant on them like I did Chicago State. So, I just think UMKC should move. Western Athletic Conference is going to be adding Denver. Denver's in the Summit right now, so moving them to the WAC wouldn't be too huge. I just think they'd be the best team to move because you don't want too many teams in your conference. I know that that's a problem for some of your D1 conferences, like the 8-10. They got a little, maybe too much teams, but you don't want to, flood your conference with a bunch of new teams. So I think take out Denver and your conference will still have a good balance of teams. And speaking of the Summit, we'll jump right to them. Obviously, going to be waiving Denver and then adding Chicago State and UMKC. One more time, just going to mention geographical sense. It fits. These teams really won't do much except be there for the geography standpoint of this, because their program really isn't too strong. So really it's only the geography part. But Purdue Fort Wayne, going to be waiving them. I thought about this one and I was like, last minute, I was like, you know what? I think, you add 2 new teams, you get rid of 2 new teams. Oh, wait, sorry. Add 2 new teams, get rid of 2 more teams, if that makes sense. Purdue Fort Wayne going to be moving to the Horizon, which we're going to talk about next. Not going to be getting rid of anyone from the Horizon, but adding Purdue Fort Wayne. And before we move on to the other team, we're going to talk about adding. The reason I say this, obviously to balance out the Summit, but also for the Horizon, you got IUPUI in here. So having IUPUI and IPFW, well, I don't think they go by IPFW anymore. Purdue Fort Wayne and Purdue University in Indianapolis, IUPUI versus IPFW. You know, I guess it's a little bit of I could see it being a rivalry. I don't know if it was in the Summit, because I haven't really been extremely tuned into the Summit. Like, you know, I know there's North Dakota State, South Dakota State's about the only rivalry I know off the top of my head, so I'm not huge into the Summit. But Purdue Fort Wayne, I feel like, would fit very well in the Horizon. And Murray State. Going to be adding Murray State. Why? Well, if you guys don't remember, back a couple years ago, there were talks of adding a new team to the Horizon. And me, being a huge Horizon League basketball fan, especially a Milwaukee Panthers fan, I was very intrigued by this, because only a couple teams that I've known very well have all left. We haven't really had any additions to the Horizon. We used to have Butler, they left. We used to have Valpo, who was a very good asset. They left. And since then, it's just kind of been the same team. So there were talks of a new team coming in. And the three main teams, well, there were really two main teams and one extra team that they were mainly talking about. It was Belmont, Murray State, and IUPUI. Nobody really talked about IUPUI just because, you know, you want Murray State, you want the Belmont. They're the stronger programs and organizations, and it'll make for more action and drama in your league. And you do need that for leagues like the Horizon. Let me tell you, when you have a league like the Horizon, sometimes it's just, you don't know what to say except just stuff like, why are we here? Because the league, I'm sorry, it's not that good. You have your dominant teams and you have your terrible teams, and it's most likely your teams aren't gonna vary in how good they are and how bad they are every year. You always have the right state, Northern Kentucky, they're at the top. You have the teams like Cleveland State, UIC, always at the bottom. So and then they picked IUPUI, obviously, to come into the Horizon. That was a big letdown. So I think, you know what, add Murray State. Why not? Talking about the OVC now. Obviously, waiving Murray State. Not going to add anyone. So jumping back right ahead to the Big South. You're going to waive USC Upstate. And not going to add anyone new to the conference. USC Upstate, we'll talk about them. This team, last time I really remember them being kind of good, I think 2013, 2014, or maybe in 2014, 2015 season, around there. They got to just back when, I think they used to be in the A-Sun. They got to the A-Sun Championship, but I'm pretty sure they weren't. I may be wrong, so help me out in the comments if I am. I don't know if they were good. I think they may have just got to the championship, and they were like in the middle of the final standings in the A-Sun, so it was a lot of people were saying, ooh, we were this close. So I don't think they were that good. And I can't really remember any time that they were. So USC Upstate, they have been terrible, especially in these past couple years, always at the bottom of the Big South. So I say, get them out of there. Move them to a new conference, and that's what we're going to talk about now. The MEAC, or Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. You're gonna move them there. Not gonna get rid of anyone, but you're gonna add USC Upstate. Now, this one might stir up some emotions. Pac-12. Yes, we're gonna be talking about the Pac-12. Not gonna be waiving anyone. Gonna be adding Gonzaga. Now, I really don't know. I'm one-sided on it, but I know that a lot of people will disagree. So, reason why I have Gonzaga at coming to the Pac-12, or being added to the Pac-12, their basketball is always, and I mean always, for the most part, at the top of the West Coast Conference. They've really, for the most part, been ranked a ton. You have your St. Mary's, that's really their only good competitor. In their conference, it's small, and it's you always have your small schools. You have, why have Gonzaga being ranked all the time and, getting to the tournament, winning their conference tournament? It seems like they're always being dominant, and they're playing teams like Pacific, Portland, San Francisco. It's some, I can't wrap my head around it. And I know they don't have football, but Notre Dame, look, they're in the ACC for basketball, and they're independent for football. So, well, I don't know. Gonzaga might have football, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I'm not huge into college football, so you can help me down in the comments. But yeah, I say just move them into the Pac-12 just for basketball purposes. You won't have them in there for football, just basketball. They'd fit right in. And then finally, the West Coast Conference, waiving Gonzaga, not adding anyone. And that, my friends, is the final, I guess you could call, final standings that I have for NCAA Conference Realignment. Again, these are all my opinions, and if you think something different than me, let me know in the comments. I'd like to see what you guys think should be different, or if you agree with anything. Let us know. This is the Highlight Vault, and thank you for watching.